The weekend starts out in Brazil with qualifying. Well, actually there was a practice session before that, due to it being a sprint weekend, something that I, along with many other F1 fans, absolutely despise. In practice there was a lot of punctures due to debris, and this meant that a lot of drivers had one less set of tyres going into the weekend, and then during qualifying, Verstappen got pole obviously, and then it was Leclerc on second, and then it was the two Aston Martins who, after taking the upgrades off their car, looked to be back on form. But right at the end of qualifying, it absolutely pissed it down. The track was just absolutely soaked, and the sky was black. It was almost like it was in the middle of night. It was absolutely ridiculous to watch this massive storm roll in. In fact, it was so bad, it ripped the grandstands apart. Luckily, I don't think anyone was injured, but it is still quite sketchy to see that. After all, it's people getting involved, and we really don't want any injuries in motorsport. Sprint qualifying was really not that interesting, except for the fact that Ocon and Alonso collided. Ocon proceeded to blame Alonso, even though he did come oversteer and then slide into Alonso. Meanwhile, Alonso just claimed it as a racing incident. So that is quite divisive in the F1 community, with people saying that Sigma Alonso and then Ocon just being this sad driver. But honestly, heat of the moment stuff, it doesn't really matter. The sprint then followed up, and it was pretty boring, with the exception of the Mercedes falling back through the field, which wasn't that promising for them. But heading into the race, we didn't know whether it was going to be brilliant, bad, or whatever, because it looked to be a pretty average weekend. It was race day, and then as we was heading to the grid for the formation lap, guess what happened? So, in a bout of Italianism, Leclerc's hydraulics gave up on the formation lap, and he spun into the wall, and he started saying on the radio, "Why am I so unlucky?" He is gaining just consciousness. It is so painful to watch.
When people refer or describe themselves as having a nervous breakdown, what it really means is that they've reached the end of their rope in terms of their coping skills and coping mechanism. And whatever they've been doing to hold it together is just no longer working, and they are flooded with an array of symptoms.
With Leclerc somehow not snapping, he managed to drive off, then pull off to the side of the track, so the race start was not delayed. And then, heading into turn 1, there was a monsoon of shite as Alex Albon collided with both the Hasses, taking, I think, Magnussen and Albon out, and it completely destroyed Piastri's rear wing and diffuser, I presume. Ricciardo almost got hit on the head by a tyre, but instead it hit his rear wing, and it had to be red flagged. It was just absolute chaos. Also at the start of the race, Norris and Hamilton got absolutely amazing starts and managed to jump past both Aston Martins, and obviously the front row was vacant because one of the Ferraris decided to spin off, Leclerc obviously, and had those four gone 4 wide into turn 1, there probably would have been the two Astons backing off and everyone backing up behind them, which means that Albon and Magnussen probably would have wiped out half the field going into turn 1, so we are so lucky to avoid that massive crash. Absolutely nothing really happened after the restart. It looked like to be quite a boring race, but then Zhou retired with an engine problem, which meant that 2 Ferrari power cars retired with problems due to the Ferrari engines and Ferrari electronics and all that stuff. Then Bottas retired, so that was 3 cars who were out, and then Sainz started reporting clutch issues. That's 4 cars affected by Italianism, and at this point, Ferrari it's more like a clown show than an F1 team. Like, they are impersonating an F1 team. Like, everyone else has shown them up. It is actually ridiculous. Ferrari is a bit like Midas, and everything that they touch, instead of turning to gold, instead turns into shit. But whilst that was all happening, Russell retired after having to lift off and all that stuff throughout pretty much the entire race, whilst Hamilton was slipping back through the field, so it was really not a good race for Mercedes. Out in front, Verstappen just pulled away from the field, with Norris maybe looking like he could win, but then he remembered that he was in a McLaren and that Max Verstappen was driving a Red Bull, and was Max Verstappen. But meanwhile, Alonso and Perez were having a great battle for the last 15 laps. And then heading into the last couple of laps, Perez managed to get past Alonso after being in DRS for 15 laps. And then Alonso, coming out of turn 4, went to do a switchback, and it looked like he could have got past up the hill. But do you know what the F1 TV directors did? They fucking turned to a crowd shot. Instead of showing, the action, they just showed the crowd there, whilst Alonso could have been getting past, and this is really going to piss me off, because they keep on doing this. Alonso managed to get past on the last lap, and heading up the hill into the final corner, Perez was just behind Alonso, and heading up to the line, they were side by side, and they were separated by half a tenth of a second crossing the line. And Alonso managed to get a podium for the first time since Canada. Aston Martin are back, and this is just a really good weekend for them. I mean, third and fourth and getting a podium, it is absolutely brilliant. Stroll, meanwhile, managed to get fifth, which is really impressive considering his form this season. And anyway, that means that Verstappen won, Norris came second, Alonso was third, but most of all, Hamilton was eighth. And that Mercedes car was absolutely awful. Toto Wolff called it the worst day in racing for him. Really, Toto? Is it your worst day in racing? I mean, a certain afternoon in 2021 when Michael Massey went on a great adventure comes to mind. So what have we learnt this weekend? Well, Ferrari's going to be Italian, the race directors are rubbish, and Verstappen is going to be Verstappen. Thank you for watching.